The wind blew across the icy plains of Korath 9, a remote planet at the far edge of human exploration. Snow fell in thick sheets, covering everything in white silence. Few humans came this far. Those who did came only for trade, supplies, or rumors of alien ruins. Most of them hurried past anything unusual, afraid of trouble. Amid the endless snow, a small figure struggled against the cold. She was clearly not human. Her skin glimmered faintly beneath the frost, patterns of light like veins running along her arms and legs. Her eyes, large and bright, were half closed, blinking in confusion as the icy wind whipped around her. She shivered violently, her breath visible in the freezing air. Each movement was slow and painful, as though her body was fighting to survive the extreme cold. She had been alone for hours or perhaps days. She had been searching for somewhere safe, somewhere humans might notice her, but the world seemed empty. Every settlement, every passing ship ignored her. Some humans had turned away in fear. Others, crueler, had mocked her glowing skin and her strange voice. She had learned quickly, asking for help here was dangerous. As she stumbled through the snow, she almost fell into a narrow crevasse. The cold was unbearable and the frost was biting her skin. Her body flickered with faint energy, a sign she was losing life force, but no one was around to see it. She whispered something in her melodic alien language, a soft sound that floated into the wind, unheard and unanswered. At the edge of a small human trading post, she collapsed. Her body hit the snow with a soft thud. A few humans inside glanced through frosted windows but quickly turned away. They did not want trouble. They did not want to deal with her. The cold, however, did not care for fear or apathy. Her energy dimmed, her body trembling like a leaf in a storm. Ethan had returned to the trading post after delivering supplies to a neighboring settlement. He was not like the others. He was younger than most, with a lean frame built for survival in harsh conditions. His eyes, brown and warm, scanned the snow out of habit. He had explored this planet several times before, and he knew the signs of trouble. When he saw the glowing figure lying in the snow, he stopped. Something about her presence made him pause. He saw the faint light under the frost, the weakness in her posture, and the fear in her wide, luminous eyes. While others might have hesitated or ignored her, he did not. Something inside told him she needed help. Without thinking twice, Ethan grabbed his thick coat and ran toward her. The wind hit him hard, but he pushed forward. Reaching her side, he knelt and gently shook her shoulder. "Hey, hey, are you alive?" he asked, his voice steady and calm. The girl's eyes opened wider, blinking at him with a mixture of confusion and fear. She tried to respond, but her voice was barely a whisper, and the words sounded like music he could not understand. Ethan did not worry about that. He could see she was shivering too much to speak properly. He carefully lifted her, wrapping her in his heavy coat. Her small body was fragile, and even in his strong arms he felt how light she had become. Carrying her was not easy. The snow was deep, and the wind lashed at him from all sides. Yet he refused to stop. He could feel the frost beginning to bite his hands despite his gloves, but his mind focused only on keeping her warm and alive. People might call him foolish later, but he did not care. Survival was not always about avoiding danger. Sometimes it was about saving someone who could not save themselves. By the time he reached his small cabin, both were covered in snow, their breaths forming clouds in the cold air. Ethan quickly set her down on the cot, removing his coat from her body and replacing it with blankets. The alien girl's faint glow began to pulse, responding to warmth and safety. Ethan built a small fire in the stove, careful not to let it flare too high. He grabbed some water and warmed it over the flame, offering it to her in a shallow bowl. She looked at it with curiosity, then hesitated. Finally, she took a tiny sip, coughing a little from the heat but seeming to regain a little strength. She looked up at him, and for the first time he saw her face fully. It was delicate, almost fragile, with patterns on her skin glowing softly in the dim light. Her eyes were enormous and filled with color shifting like liquid light, reflecting the fire's warmth. For a moment, Ethan could feel the weight of the universe in her gaze, a being so alone, so misunderstood now in his care. "Can you speak?" he asked gently, unsure if she would answer. The girl tried again, her voice soft and melodic. Ethan could not understand the words, but he could feel the meaning behind them. Fear, relief, confusion, gratitude. She tried to gesture with her hands, pointing at herself and then at him, finally at the fire. He nodded. "Okay, I get it. You're cold. You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." She seemed to relax slightly, the tension in her body easing as the fire warmed her. Slowly, her glowing patterns became brighter, colors dancing like ribbons over her skin. It was beautiful and strange, and Ethan could not help but marvel at it. He realized she was not just an alien, she was extraordinary. And yet, she was just as vulnerable as any human would be in her situation. As she regained strength, Ethan noticed small wounds on her arms, likely from falling or being pushed through the snow. He took a clean cloth and gently wiped them, careful not to hurt her. She flinched at first, but then allowed him to continue. The trust between them began to form, fragile but real. Hours passed. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside the cabin, Ethan kept the fire going and sat nearby, talking softly, telling her about his life, about Earth, and about the settlements he had visited. She did not fully understand the words, but she listened, occasionally tilting her head as if trying to learn. She began to make sounds he could recognize as attempts at speech, repeating simple words he had said, her voice still musical but more familiar now. Night fell and the storm showed no sign of stopping. Ethan realized he could not leave her here, not even for a moment. He built a small bed from blankets and cushions, making a comfortable space for her near the fire. She curled up slowly, her glowing skin dimming a little as her body finally relaxed. He watched her for a long moment, feeling a mix of wonder and responsibility. Suddenly, a siren wailed in the distance. Ethan froze, his heart pounding. The patrol from the human settlement was coming. He knew they did not like aliens, especially not ones this close to their borders. If they saw her, they might try to take her or worse. He looked at the girl, sleeping peacefully, and felt a surge of protectiveness he had never known before. He whispered, "Don't worry, I'll keep you safe." The siren grew louder. Ethan knew he had to act quickly. He thought about hiding her or sneaking out, but the storm made travel dangerous. If they tried to enter the cabin, they would see footprints in the snow. He had to think fast. His mind raced. He could reinforce the door, cover tracks, and hope they did not investigate further. He could also try to communicate with them, explain that she was injured and needed help. But he knew most humans would not care. They would see her as a threat, not a being in need. Ethan grabbed a thick tarp and covered the windows, then moved some furniture to block the entrance. He quietly picked up a heavy blanket and draped it over her, dimming her glow just enough so the patrol would not notice if they peeked inside. Minutes later, muffled voices shouted outside. Ethan held his breath. The wind howled, snow blowing against the cabin walls. His heart pounded as he imagined them discovering her. But then, slowly, the voices faded and the snow swallowed the sounds. Ethan exhaled in relief. He looked at the alien girl, her breathing steady now. He realized something important. He had done more than save her from the cold. He had shown her that not all humans were cruel or afraid. Someone could care, someone could protect her when no one else would. The night was long and Ethan stayed awake, keeping watch. He felt a strange sense of connection, as if their meeting was not random. Something in the universe had brought them together. He did not know what would happen next, but he knew one thing. He could not leave her, and he would not let anyone harm her while he was near. By morning, the storm began to subside. The snow sparkled in the pale sunlight, and the alien girl slowly opened her eyes again. She looked at Ethan, and for the first time there was recognition in her gaze. She tried to smile, a soft, luminous curve of her lips. Ethan smiled back, feeling a warmth inside that had nothing to do with the fire. He whispered, "You're safe now, I promise." For the first time in her life, the alien girl felt that promise was true. And as they both looked out at the endless white landscape, a silent understanding passed between them. They would face whatever came next together. The patrol might still be out there. The world might still fear her. But for now, she had a human who had said simply, "Come inside." And that was enough. The morning sun reflected off the snow, turning the white plains of Korath 9 into a shimmering expanse. The storm had passed, leaving the world quiet except for the distant crunch of ice shifting under the wind. Ethan watched the alien girl as she stirred, her glowing skin now brighter, almost pulsating with life. She sat up slowly, rubbing her arms, still weak but alive. "Do you feel better?" Ethan asked gently. She looked at him, tilting her head in curiosity. Then she tried to speak, her melodic voice forming words he could barely understand. He smiled and shook his head. "It's okay. I don't need you to speak yet. I understand enough." For a moment, they sat in silence, listening to the soft creaking of the cabin under the wind. Ethan could not help but marvel at her. She was so different from anything he had ever seen, yet she was also fragile and human-like in her vulnerability. She had survived the cold, the neglect, and the fear of others, but without him she might not have. He helped her stand. She swayed slightly, unsteady on her feet, but Ethan held her hand firmly. She shivered at the touch, not from cold now, but from the strange warmth of human contact. She seemed to recognize it as safe, and her glowing patterns danced brighter, almost like a silent smile. "We should move," Ethan said. "You can't stay here. If the patrol comes back, they might search the area more carefully." The alien girl nodded, her glowing eyes following him as he packed supplies, water, some dried food, a blanket, and a small bag of tools. He carried her lightly to the edge of the cabin, wrapping her again in his coat. The cold still bit at their faces, but they were both prepared. As they stepped into the snow, Ethan realized how exposed they were. The plains stretched endlessly, with no shelter for miles. But he had an idea. A few days' journey to the west, there was an abandoned human research station. No one had visited it in years. If they reached it, they could rest, heal, and plan their next steps. The journey was slow. The alien girl could walk, but the snow slowed her, and she was still weak from the cold. Ethan guided her carefully, making sure she did not fall. Along the way, she began to experiment with her powers. Small flashes of light danced around her fingers, illuminating the snow as she touched it. Ethan watched in awe. He realized she could manipulate energy in small ways, creating warmth, light, and even subtle shields against the wind. "Can you help us?" Ethan asked, hoping she could use her abilities to make the journey safer. She looked at him, glowing softly, then raised her hand. A faint dome of light surrounded them, shielding them from the harshest wind. It was not perfect, but it made the journey more bearable. Ethan smiled, realizing she was beginning to trust him and that they were working together. As the sun climbed higher, the patrol from the settlement had not appeared. Ethan hoped they had given up, but he knew better. Humans feared aliens, and they would search again if given a reason. He kept moving, checking the sky and horizon for any signs of ships or travelers. The alien girl walked beside him, gradually regaining strength. She experimented with her glowing patterns, trying to mimic his gestures, and occasionally making small sounds that matched words he said. Ethan laughed softly. It was the first time she had seemed playful, and it gave him hope. She was learning, adapting, surviving, and he felt proud to have helped her. By evening, they reached the edge of a frozen canyon. The sun was low, and shadows stretched across the snow. Ethan knew the station was still a few hours away, and the canyon was dangerous, with hidden crevasses and ice-covered ledges. He moved carefully, guiding her step by step. Suddenly, A loud crack echoed through the canyon. Ice shifted under their feet and a hidden crevasse appeared ahead. The alien girl froze, panic flashing in her glowing eyes. Without thinking, Ethan grabbed her and pulled her back. They both fell to the snow, hearts racing. "Careful," Ethan said, breathing heavily. "The ice here is unstable. You need to watch your step." She nodded, her glow dimming slightly with fear, but then she raised her hands. A faint energy pulse extended in front of them, illuminating the hidden crevasses. Ethan's jaw dropped. She was learning fast, and she wanted to help. They continued slowly, using her powers to detect danger and Ethan's knowledge of the terrain to avoid it. By nightfall, they reached the ridge above the research station. The building was old, its metal walls rusted and frozen shut in places. No smoke rose from the chimney. It looked abandoned exactly as Ethan remembered. They approached cautiously. Ethan tested the door, it was stuck. The alien girl extended her hand, and a small pulse of energy melted the ice enough for him to push it open. Inside, the station was cold but dry, with old supplies and equipment left behind. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. They had made it. Inside, he lit a small fire in the old stove and helped the alien girl settle near it. She curled up on a blanket, her glowing skin reflecting the firelight. For the first time, she looked completely relaxed. Ethan watched her, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. He had saved her life and she had survived against all odds. As the night grew darker, he realized they were not entirely safe. The patrol could still be out there. He checked the perimeter, looking for signs of movement. The station was remote but not invisible. He needed to ensure they would not be discovered. The alien girl, sensing his concern, reached out and touched his hand. Her glow pulsed softly. It was a small gesture, but it communicated trust and gratitude. Ethan smiled. He understood. She was not just a survivor. She was becoming his companion, someone he needed to protect as much as he needed her. Days passed. The alien girl grew stronger. She learned to control her energy in new ways, creating warmth, sensing danger, and even helping Ethan with small repairs around the station. Ethan taught her basic human words, and she repeated them, her voice slowly forming sentences he could understand. "You saved me," she said one morning, her glowing patterns flickering with emotion. "Yes," Ethan replied, "and I will keep doing it. You're not alone anymore." Her eyes reflected a mixture of relief and curiosity. She had never known kindness like this. Most humans ignored or feared her species, but Ethan had acted without hesitation. He had shown her that humanity could be brave, compassionate, and selfless. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink, Ethan and the alien girl stood outside the station. She raised her hands, letting her light flow into the air. Patterns swirled around them, reflecting in the snow. Ethan watched, amazed by her beauty and power. "You are incredible," he said. "Not just because of your abilities, but because you survived. You're strong." She looked at him, her glow steady and calm. She had learned something important. Some humans were different. They could be protectors, friends, even heroes. She had found one in Ethan. The wind carried distant sounds, perhaps wildlife, perhaps distant travelers. Ethan knew the journey was far from over. They would need to move again, find other alien refugees, and stay ahead of anyone who might see her as a threat. But for now, they were safe. For the first time, both of them could rest and plan. The alien girl looked at Ethan and smiled, a small, radiant curve that made his chest warm despite the cold. She whispered something in her language, and this time he understood part of it. "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," he said softly. "I did what anyone should do. But I'm glad you're alive. That's all that matters." Night fell and the stars appeared, sparkling above the snowy plains. Ethan and the alien girl sat near the fire, their hands brushing occasionally, sharing warmth and comfort. She had survived the cold, the fear, and the indifference of others, and he had shown her that humans could be more than fear. They could be courage, kindness, and hope. The future was uncertain. There would be challenges, dangers, and people who did not understand her. But together, they had proven that even in a frozen, harsh world, humanity could make a difference. They could save lives, inspire trust, and forge bonds stronger than fear. For the first time in her life, the alien girl felt safe. Not just from the cold, not just from danger, but from the loneliness that had haunted her every step. She had a human who had said simply, "Come inside." And that simple act had changed everything. Ethan looked at her, feeling a deep sense of responsibility. He had taken her in, protected her, and taught her that not all humans were cruel or afraid. But in return, she had given him something he did not expect, a sense of wonder, of hope, and a reminder of why he explored the stars in the first place. The snow continued to fall lightly outside, but inside the station, warmth and light filled the room. Ethan and the alien girl were ready to face whatever came next together. And in that moment, the world outside seemed a little less cold, a little less harsh, and a little more full of promise.